So, imagine you've got this top-tier, state-of-the-art security system guarding your house. It's flawless. But then, one day, the cameras suddenly turn inward, and the alarms start going off at you. What happens when your absolutely strongest defense system suddenly becomes your worst enemy? Well, that is the ultimate biological mystery we're investigating today.
Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we're going to be demystifying autoimmunity. We're looking into exactly why the human body sometimes just fights its own tissues. We'll explore how your internal security system goes rogue, why it happens in the first place, and what it actually looks like when it does.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. The ultimate biological betrayal, an inside job. Okay, so to really understand this betrayal, we first have to define what autoimmunity actually is. Under normal circumstances, your immune system is a total master at distinguishing between what belongs in your body, what we call self, and what doesn't. But autoimmunity happens when the system just loses that crucial ability. The very same system that was designed to target invading bacteria and viruses, it suddenly directs its whole immune response against your own perfectly healthy cells, sparking this relentless inflammation and tissue damage.
If you look at the comparison we've got here, it really makes it clear. Over on the left, you see normal immune function. It recognizes and attacks non-self threats, like viruses. It's doing its job perfectly, keeping you safe and sound. But then, on the right, under autoimmune function, the system basically develops a massive blind spot. It totally loses the ability to recognize self, and it starts treating your healthy, functioning cells just like foreign invaders. It's wild.
And what's truly staggering about this is the sheer scale of the casualties. We aren't just talking about one single type of autoimmune disease here. There are actually over 80 recognized autoimmune diseases. Over 80. They range from conditions that target just one specific organ to these massive multi-system conditions that can affect the entire body. It's a hugely vast and complex landscape of biological errors.
Moving on to Section 2, why the system fails. Identifying the suspects.
What's really fascinating here is that there's no single mastermind behind this crime. Instead, it's usually a combination of these suspects acting together. First up, we have genetics. Certain genetic variations can definitely increase your susceptibility. Then there are infections, which can sometimes just stimulate an autoimmune response as like a totally unintended side effect. Hormones play a really huge role too, which actually explains why autoimmune diseases have a much higher prevalence in women. We've also got environmental exposures acting as triggers for people who are already susceptible. And finally, overall immune dysregulation, which is basically the complete failure of the built-in mechanisms that normally keep our immune responses in check.
But hey, here is a really crucial point I want you to take away. Having a risk factor does not guarantee you'll get the disease. Just because you have one of these suspects lurking in your biology doesn't mean the crime has actually been committed. Usually it takes a kind of perfect storm where multiple factors interact over a long period of time before a condition ever actually becomes apparent. So don't panic if you recognize a risk factor.
Let's look at Section 3, mechanisms of the attack, the modus operandi.
So how does this actually go down? Well, one fascinating way is through a biological case of mistaken identity. It's this process known as molecular mimicry. Let's walk through the steps together. Step 1, an infectious organism enters your body. Your immune system spots it, red alert, prepares to fight. But here's where it all goes wrong in Step 2. Parts of that infection happen to look exactly like the proteins in your own human tissue. They're effectively wearing the exact same disguise. So in Step 3, your immune response accidentally attacks similar structures in your own body. The system is just completely fooled by the camouflage.
Now here is the second modus operandi, loss of immune tolerance. Think of your immune system as having a series of strict security checkpoints designed to stop rogue cells from attacking you. When these normal biological safeguards fail, those self-reactive cells just slip right through the gates. They start attacking healthy tissues and create this relentless cycle of persistent inflammation. Basically, the brakes just completely give way.
All right, Section 4, the usual suspects, the casualties of the attack.
Even though it's the exact same fundamental mistake, a loss of self-recognition, it ends up destroying completely different systems depending on the specific disease. Let's look at a few. With rheumatoid arthritis, the target area is the joints, causing severe inflammation, pain, and stiffness. In type 1 diabetes, the immune system specifically zeroes in on the pancreatic beta cells, stopping insulin production right in its tracks. With multiple sclerosis, it's actually the central nervous system under fire, which leads to visual disturbances and weakness. Then you have lupus, which is a massive multi-organ attack, affecting everything from the skin to the kidneys and heart, and the symptoms vary wildly. And finally, celiac disease, where the intestines are targeted. That one is triggered specifically by gluten and actively blocks nutrient absorption. So it's one core error, but it creates 5 totally different biological battlegrounds.
Which brings us to Section 5, the challenge of diagnosis, cracking the case.
Because there's such a wide variety of battlegrounds, this creates a highly frustrating reality for patients who are just desperately trying to figure out what's wrong with them. A big part of that frustration stems from the symptoms of these invisible illnesses. Just look at this list: fatigue, joint pain, rashes, digestive problems, crazy shifts in energy levels. I mean, these are incredibly common symptoms that overlap with countless other everyday conditions, right? When a patient comes in feeling perpetually exhausted with aching joints, it's a real puzzle for doctors. Those clues could literally point to dozens of entirely different issues.
And because of that immense overlap, cracking this case takes a lot of time and a truly multifaceted investigation by healthcare professionals. They have to piece together a highly detailed medical history, perform thorough physical exams, and run all sorts of specific blood and antibody tests. They might even need specialized imaging. And crucially, they have to assess how these symptoms evolve over time. It is definitely not a quick or simple process, that's for sure.
Which actually brings us to a super important caveat that you need to know. A positive autoimmune antibody test does not automatically mean that a person actually has an autoimmune disease. It's a clue, not a conviction. Those test results always have to be interpreted alongside actual clinical findings by a professional to get the true, holistic picture of what's going on.
All right, moving into Section 6, managing the chronic threat, taming the system. While it's true that these diseases are chronic, the good news is we have a very robust toolkit for managing them. This includes medicines designed to regulate or even suppress that abnormal immune activity, alongside treatments specifically aimed at controlling the inflammation. But, it goes far beyond just prescriptions. Physical activity, rehabilitation, balanced nutrition, and getting adequate sleep are massive factors in taming the system. Add in regular monitoring and, perhaps most importantly, support for the very real emotional and social challenges of living with a chronic disease. A highly customized approach utilizing all these elements can vastly improve a person's quality of life and prevent severe complications down the road. And honestly, the horizon is incredibly bright right now. The future of treatment is rapidly shifting away from just broadly suppressing the entire immune system, which, let's face it, can leave patients vulnerable to other infections. Instead, we're moving toward targeting the very specific biological pathways involved. Thanks to all this growing research into genetics and those environmental triggers we talked about earlier, therapies are becoming so much more precise. We are literally learning how to disarm the specific rogue agents without having to shut down your entire security system. It's amazing.
So that leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to ponder today. Is your immune system perfectly balanced to protect you without harming you? It's a highly regulated network, and keeping that balance is an absolute biological marvel. What you should really take away from this explainer is that if you do have persistent or unexplained symptoms, please don't ignore them. But at the same time, don't jump to conclusions either. Seek proper medical evaluation, trust the investigative process, and let the experts help you figure out exactly what's happening inside your incredibly complex body.